Hi Jason, I'm gonna be telling you my story. The story started before your name entered into my life, before my life found a shape I could recognize. There was a place that taught me how to understand quietly, deliberately, without spectacle. I grew up in Bebek. The word bebek means baby in Turkish, yet nothing about that place was fragile. Its name comes from Bebek Çelebi, an Ottoman commander appointed to guard the Bosporus. Over the time, the name remained tender, while the neighborhood itself grew refined, balanced between water and land, history and daily life. Bebek does not raise children loudly. It teaches them to observe. Our apartment stood across from a mosque, facing a small park from the windows. Trees came first, toward us steady. Beyond them, the Bosporus opened quietly. The mosque never dominated the view. It simply existed within it. That balance entered me early. When you entered the building, the house revealed itself slowly. There was a fire first. The floors were white marble, cool and polished. The doors were handcrafted wood, carved by skilled carpenters. Nothing was mass produced, everything carried intention. The living room opened wide. The ceiling was high, decorated with ornate moldings, raised glided details that echoed in the aesthetic of Ottoman palaces. When you looked through the windows, the view unfolded like a painting. Trees in the foreground, the mosque beyond them, and behind it all the sea, clear and uninterrupted. The kitchen was smaller but precise. To the left at the entrance stood the refrigerator, aligned with it was the kitchen table. From there, the countertop and cabinets extended all the way to the end. The white marble floors continued seamlessly. A door led to the second section of the apartment, where a long corridor began. The first room on the left was my father's library. Once two rooms merged into one, books lined the walls in floor of ceilings. In the center stood his desk. It was a place where silence worked. At the end of the corridor was my parents' bedroom, Ottoman in spirit, wardrobes beside tables, and the bed itself were all hand-carved wood. The room carried weight, history. Next to it was the room my sister and I shared. One entire wall was filled with built-in wardrobe. What had once been a balcony was enclosed and became our study area, with two desks standing side by side. A few steps further were our beds, two single beds with 10 crafted wooden headboards and rounded wooden finals at their ends. Nothing in the apartment was accidental. Even the rooms seemed to know who they were meant for. Mornings began with intention. I woke up early by choice, dressed carefully, and stood in front of a mirror, aware of myself, my posture, my composure. I was a hard-working student. My grades were always perfect. At the same time, I trained my body through sports. Discipline never felt imposed. It felt internal. I wore designer clothes not to be seen, but because I understood the structure, fit cut, proportion. Boys admired me, but most of them never spoke. Desire existed but stayed contained. I was a virgin, not out of fear or innocence, but out of selectiveness. Attention did not grant access. Intimacy required meaning. That was my beginning. Family. Families do not shape you through speeches. They shape you through atmosphere. My mother was educated at Atatürk's Girls' High School, a school whose name carried far more than symbolism. Founded in 1936, it evolved through multiple locations and identities before becoming one of Istanbul's most trusted and respected public schools. For generations of families in Beşiktaş and along the Bosphorus, it functioned almost like a neighborhood school. Not because... hold on a second. Not because it was ordinary, but because it was reliable. It educated girls who were expected to carry themselves with confidence, discipline, and civic responsibility. Later, my mother studied architecture at Mimar Sinan Fine Arts University, a public university whose main campus sits in Fındıklı, along the Bosphorus. Its roots reach back to 1882, when it was founded by Osman Hamdi Bey under the name Mektebi Sanayi Nefise-i Şahane. When it opened its doors in 1883 with just 8 instructors and 20 students, it carried a vast intention to train painters, sculptors, and architects who understood art and architecture as intellectual responsibility. That alignment mattered to my mother. Precision was natural to her. Balance was instinctive. Creativity was never careless. The education she received did not remain within university walls. It followed her home. My father was disciplined in human form. He grew up within the military education system. From primary school through high school, rules were not constraints to him, they were structure. Later, he became a professor at Istanbul University and taught actively for 47 years. Knowledge for him was not performance, it was a duty. His presence filled our home quietly through books, routine, and unspoken expectation that effort mattered. And then there was my grandfather, Yaşar Keçeli. He was a Laz man. To be called a Laz is not simply an ethnic description. It is a cultural one. The Laz people come from Turkey's eastern Black Sea region, a land shaped by steep mountains, heavy rain, and hard labor. Strength there is not optional. It is learned early, carried in the body. reinforced by tradition and tradition. Lost men are known for endurance, physical resilience, and a deep instinct to protect what is theirs. My grandfather carried that strength naturally, but his power was never lost. He lost his mother at a very young age, and that absence reshaped him, where strength might have hardened him severity. It softened instead. Loss gave him mercy. It taught him alternatives to vulnerability, to dignity, to people living at the edge. I saw this clearly at our summer house in Silivri. The front of the house opened directly onto a sandy beach, open to the public. Romani families passed freely along the shoreline. My grandfather never turned them away. When they walked past our home, he brought them water and slices of bread spread generously with butter. It was never announced, never performed, just a quiet gesture repeated without expectation. Strength to him did not require exclusion. It required steadiness. My grandmother stood beside that steadiness with her own kind of strength. She supported me without conditions, always quietly, decisively. She was a deeply compassionate woman, generous in ways that did not ask to be seen. When my parents were young, my grandfather's relatives would arrive at their home in numbers, 7 people at a time. She welcomed them, all on her own. From early breakfast to late dinners, from the rhythm of meals to the bedding laid carefully on the floor at night. She organized everything. She made space, physically and emotionally, for everyone who came through the door. Hospitality in her hands was not obligation, it was care. Together, my grandparents created a world where strength and mercy were not opposites, they were companions. And growing up with that balance taught me something essential, that discipline could coexist within kindness, and that support did not need to be loud to be unwavering. One day, after an argument with my mother, I sat on the stairs crying. I did not want to take exams in Turkey. I wanted only America. I was young, stubborn, overwhelmed. My grandfather sat beside me and said simply, "Don't worry, I'll send you to America." He did not explain. He did not promise loudly. He meant it. That sentence settled me inside. Quiet, patient, like a foundation waiting for a structure to rise.